Hello,
Oh, I
everyone.
see Elaine Ingham. Hi, Elaine. Hi, Mark. I saw Mark Dinkins for a moment. Where'd he go? Thought he was there. Oh, there he is.
Face is
Unmuted.
popping up.
Woohoo.
Hello, everyone. While we are waiting for everyone to join, we will listen to beautiful John playing the guitar.
I only have one tune, unfortunately. I'm a one-trick pony.
You are better than you think, John.
I don't know if I've told you guys about Igor and Eeyore, because I have my wife, who you're sort of going to meet a little bit in a moment, tells me that my Igor is too big. But she means my ego. My wife is German, so she calls but she makes puns of everything. So she says my Igor is too big. But I feel more like Eeyore, the donkey from Winnie the Pooh. So it's difficult. So, but I found out that my feeling now is that there's bipolarism. You know, you have Igor on the one side and Eeyore on the other, and the nice point is in the middle.
So some people are joining.
I have to play guitar because I was born in Nashville, Tennessee.
Requirement.
Feeling more like that. Maybe we need to put something right here. Except then it's pushing your keys. That works. Everybody comb your hair.
Nandana, I think we can hear you. I'll mute you. Okay. Thank you, John. I think we can start the session. Lots of people have joined, so that's very exciting. I will share my screen with you. So let me check. Welcome, everyone. Good to have you all here. Thank you very much for joining. I would like to welcome you to this fireside chat, already the fourth of this year. And this time it's together with John D. Liu and Katie Weintraub. She's the partnership and project coordinator of Camp Sinal do Vale in Brazil. And we're very excited to have you here. So thanks, Katie. Just some house rules. I would like to ask you to please hold your questions until after Katie's presentation. We would like to make it a little bit of an interactive session. So if you do have a question, please raise your hand and we will ask you to ask your question in person to Katie. And just for you to know, this session will last for only for 1 hour, but feel free to stay longer because we will facilitate an open discussion afterwards. But if you need to go, feel free as well. So thank you. My name, by the way, is Inge Kerkhoff. I'm one of the camp coordinators, and I will be the host for tonight. First, I would like to share some camp news. Currently, we have 4 camp experiences worldwide. The first one is in Australia, Camp Akura, and they will host their first ERC camp experience from the 27th of April until the 13th of May. They're located in New South Wales. So if you do have family or friends living there, just remind them of this beautiful experience. And we have Camp Contour Lines. They offer an on-site agroforestry course from the 20th of May until the 30th of May. So that is a very cool opportunity as well. They're located in Guatemala. And Camp Frisley and Camp Habiba have ongoing camp opportunities. So go over to their camp page and see if there's something up for you. Then other camp news. We are very excited to share that we added 3 new camps to the ERC movement. One is located in the Philippines, the other in South Africa. And me as a Dutchie, I'm very happy that we also now have a camp in the Netherlands. So they're not set up on our website yet, but we will announce them via our social media soon. Then Camp Desperto in Brazil, because they're not able to host any camps due to COVID, they are now working on a project to restore neighbors' land. So they just started to collaborate with their neighbors and to see how they can increase their impact. So that's a very exciting thing. Camp Mombasa Mangroves, maybe they've been here last session, and with the help of one anonymous donor, they were able to plant over 210,000 mangrove seedlings only in 2021. So that's very exciting. And another exciting thing is that we will test our new M&E framework. And already 6 camps will start with our data collection. So hopefully we will have some very interesting data soon. So John, I will now share with you a lovely video that John made for us.
Could you just wait one moment, Inga? Inga, just one moment. I want to introduce it.
Go for it.
So this is a little bit different video. This was not made by me. This was made by my wife, Cosima. And my wife, Cosima, is in China, which is wonderful for her because they have more or less conquered the COVID thing, and she's able to go around. I mean, they still mask and do social distancing, and they're getting their vaccinations, but actually they rarely have any cases. And when they do have a case, they like go and isolate everybody who was in the case for 2 weeks and test everyone in this widening circle and so on and so on. And they've, in a country which is really has a huge population, they have done a really good job of containing the pandemic. So that's not the case in the United States, where I have been trapped for a year by the COVID travel restrictions. So now, Inga, if you could maybe just play it, and then if it's a little too loud, you might lower the audio so I can speak over it, because there's just music. But don't lower it too much. Let there be some music. It's kind of lovely, but I'll try to keep telling you things, because I wanted to tell you a little bit. Does it work?
Do have to be honest. I'm not sure if it will. Let me try it again.
I can try to share my screen if you would prefer that.
Maybe that's a better idea.
I'll try. Let me see.
Because I see that it doesn't offer me the option to share it with you.
What do you see?
Yes, I see it.
Do you see it? Okay, I'll try to. Is it full on or?
Yes, it is.
So this is our house in Beijing, which I'm terribly missing. And this is her food. So I'm missing getting only food. That's our granddaughter and my son Forrest. That's Arusha. She's looking at all the Easter things. She's trying to figure out which pudding she wants, apparently. But this is very moving because we've been separated now for a year because I can't get over there. I can do anything else.
Give my keys.
So
Keys? Maybe he wants to choose his own flower.
anyway,
Was das schon?
it's a little loud, I guess. But can you hear me? Can you wave? Uh-oh. Anyway, I think I'm gonna mute. So it's beautiful, but I'm gonna just lower the music. I don't know how to lower it, so I'm gonna mute it. What's that?
No, go ahead.
Could you hear me over the music? I wasn't sure.
Yes, we
You
could.
could.
Yeah.
Okay, well, all right. So anyway, I wanted to talk a little bit about California and, of course, how important family is. So, you know, there's so much disruptions here in California. And we've been finding many problems, the various problems from homelessness and hunger and unemployment, and that's increasing because of the COVID pandemic. But I think what's important is that the solutions to all these problems are also in ecosystem restoration. Because if we can get people to focus on restoring Earth systems, then we can have full employment. We can ensure that there's food security for everyone, because actually there's massive abundance everywhere. And the idea that here in a place where there's just so much of everything, so much abundance, people should be hungry or homeless is terrible. So it's interesting to think about this. And what we 5 months ago we started a Zoom every Sunday called Land-Based Healing for People and Place, and this is growing larger and larger. So I think it's an important and interesting thing to see that if people can come together and in participation, they can address things that even the governments and businesses are unable to do, because it's just about sharing. So learning how to share is of enormous importance. So I'm feeling very homesick now because my studio is in there, and for 30 years, that's where I lived. And we started with a bare earth. There was nothing there. It was called wasteland. They gave us a piece of land to build our house, which just had construction rubble. And now it's one of the most biodiverse places with huge amounts of birds. And all that food that she's eating, she's growing. Or actually, it's wild food. She's not really growing it. She's just picking dandelion leaves and things. But we have a lot of fruit trees and other stuff. Anyway, I just wanted you to see what's going on in China these days. They're happy, and so there's sort of hope that there's a post-COVID reality, which is good. So that's me, and thank you so much for coming, and you're going to have a wonderful time today because there's a great camp in Brazil that you're going to learn about now. So thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, John, so much for sharing this beautiful your family with us. It is. I hope you're able to see them really soon. It makes me a little bit sad as well, but it's all
well. Yeah, thank goodness for Zoom.
Yes.
But yeah.
Well, all right. Thank you. I will continue with the presentation because we are ready to introduce to you the camp Sinal do Vale. They are, and I have a little video with you to share as well, and this will take a little time, although I am in Amsterdam. I'm not sure why, but sometimes my computer is a little bit slow, so bear with me. But I will introduce you to Camp Sinal do Vale. They are located close to Rio de Janeiro, and they're covered 400 acres. And they are located in the Atlantic Rainforest, one with the highest biodiversity, but also they are suffering greatly. I believe only 15% is left of the Atlantic Rainforest. So therefore it's vital, the work that Sinal do Vale is doing. And I'm now seeing that the video is loading, so that's a good thing. And we can watch their beautiful site. I mean, it's a beautiful place. And this video will take you to there for a while. So enjoy. I'm really sorry, something went wrong. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. It just seems like it's the video keeps like chopping up, being choppy.
Okay. Well,
but that's okay. I think people probably got the idea.
I'm really sorry about that, Katie. Oh, we're back. I hope this video wasn't too choppy because I feel it's a really meditative video. And every time I watch it, I feel pretty excited to go there actually, because it seems so beautiful. But Katie, I would love to give the word word to you if everything goes right. Yes. Now we're at the good slide. So, hey, Katie.
Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm very happy to be here. And we just joined ecosystem restoration camps last year, but I was actually just talking about that this morning with our team, how we think this has been one of the best networks that we've joined. I mean, we've in such a short time, we've already connected with so many people and learned so much stuff. And I'm really excited to be part of it and see where things will go this year. And it was great to meet John a few weeks ago. We had a very nice chat. So I've heard so much about him for so long, so it's been a pleasure to actually get to meet personally. So just to let you know, my name is Katie. I am from the United States originally, but I moved to Brazil after college. Well, actually, I came to Brazil to spend a few months because I was interested in learning about food systems and sustainable agriculture. And I came just to spend a few months and ended up falling in love with Brazil and falling in love with Sinal do Vale. So I've now been here for almost 6 years. I just finished my master's in sustainable development practice, and I am the partnerships and coordinator at Sinal, and I'm also a project manager, which I'll talk a little bit more about my project. But Sinal do Vale is a Brazilian organization, despite the fact that there are a few of us who are international people, but is very much grounded and rooted here in Brazil, and was founded by Thais Corral, an amazing social entrepreneur that's quite well known in the field of sustainability and women's empowerment. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Sinal do Vale, and then I would love to hear some questions and talk to everyone. So I guess you can go to the next slide. So Sinal do Vale is located in the Mata Atlântica, which is one of the world's most threatened biomes. You can click again. Yeah, you can keep clicking. It is actually only one of 36 biodiversity hotspots in the world. And despite it being so threatened, it also 3/4 of Brazil's GDP is generated within this biome, and it's also responsible for 70% of water for the population, or water for 70% of the population. And a lot of people, when we think of Brazil, we think of the Amazon rainforest. I never have even heard of the Atlantic forest before coming to Brazil, but it's really quite shocking how deforested and how degraded this ecosystem is. And in the last year, or between 2018 and 2019, 28%, there was a 8% increase in deforestation. And beyond this, a lot of it is due to the urban sprawl of the cities of Rio de Janeiro, of São Paulo, that are expanding and literally crawling into the forest. So you can go to the next slide. So Sinal do Vale, we work within this context. We are a center for regeneration of ecosystems, communities, and individuals, and we are guardians of 200 hectares of land. And even though we're in the really deep rainforest, we are only 50 kilometers from downtown Rio, and very close to one of the international airports. So we're really in this kind of buffer zone between the urban sprawl of Rio and then some of the last protected forests of Atlantic Rainforest. We are an advanced post of UNESCO's biosphere reserves, and we are one of 17 global ecosphere retreats by the Long Run Initiative. And Sinal do Vale, we prototype and we teach solutions for the regeneration of forests, soils, and food systems, but always with this vision of how can we replicate and scale them up. So everything we do in our kind of living laboratory at Sinal on this campus of the 200 hectares was with the idea to be able to replicate and scale up in this region. You can go to the next one. So Sinal do Vale, I think the slide is delayed. That's only showing three, it's not the full thing. Well, I'll just keep talking. So we have 4 action fields. We have change agents, hospitality, soil, food, and forest, and resilient infrastructure. And each one of those areas, we have different projects. And for example, change agents, we do all of our work with education, with students, both local and international. Hospitality is where we have 12 houses here at Sinal where we receive groups of leaders and students and people. And food, soil, and forest is all of our work with restoration, regeneration of soils, reforestation projects, agroforestry, permaculture, and resilient infrastructure is all our work that we do with bioconstruction, with waste management. You can go to the next one. And but what is most important about Sinal, I would say, is our team, that we are made up of really amazing, diverse group of people. And we have people from around the world, from Uruguay, from Mexico, from Ireland. Yet at the same time, the majority of our team is here from the town of Santo Antonio, the small community that we're located. So I think probably one of the things that I most love about Sinal is that it's given me this amazing opportunity to build really real, authentic relationships with people that are so different from myself, that come from such different backgrounds, but all working towards the same purpose. You can go to the next one. And just here are some numbers about some of our impact in those different fields. We've had more than 60 events hosted, more than 4,000 change agents have passed through Sinal. We've done 40 different, at least community mobilization interventions in the local community here, and at least 9,000 trees planted, though this year we have a very big reforestation project that's happening that hopefully that number will get much larger. You can go to the next one. And Sinal has really embraced this concept of land stewardship, which is how do you take care, how do you become a guardian of the land? And the different areas of impact that we're looking at, just here are a few, but of carbon sequestration, we've started to do some calculations based on all the land that we've regenerated or protected. Water security, we've mapped and monitored and are monitoring 75 different springs in the valley. We have 15 within our own land, and we're providing water for more than 2,000 people in the local community. And of course, biodiversity, the Mata Atlântica is full of amazing species, fauna, flora. We are protecting the endangered golden lion tamarin. We have a family of golden lion tamarins that live on our property. You can go to the next one. And Sinal really is kind of like, it's a space in which we incubate different initiatives, whether they're very small ones like the bioconstruction projects and the biofertilizers and compost, or the slightly bigger ones like Vila Limpa, which is a community-based waste management project where we worked with the local community to improve the system for trash and recycling. And then you can see these ones on the right, the purple ones. These are all initiatives that started as small projects and have now transformed into more of business models. So hospitality is the ecotourism, the conferences and retreats. We have a food delivery project that uses our local food grown in our own gardens and delivered to homes around here. Our bamboo that we create biodegradable bamboo products made from the bamboo from here. And then Madre Frutos, which is our biggest enterprise, which I'll talk about now. You can go to the next one, which is our jackfruit market-driven regeneration business model. Essentially, jackfruit is one of the largest fruits in the entire world, and Brazil is exactly what John was saying. We have to look for abundance. Here in Brazil, there is jackfruit everywhere. It is an exotic species. And it is considered, if in protected areas, it's considered an invasive species. But at the same time, in terms of food security, it is extremely nutritious. It is extremely healthy. And when you consume it when it's green, you can use it as a meat substitute. All around the world, they're now using it as a meat substitute. But in Brazil, it's still very early on. So we created an enterprise called Madre Frutos, where we process the green jackfruit into several different subproducts, and then we sell to restaurants and distributors. And the idea is, as we grow, there are many property owners and farmers in the region that have lots of green jackfruit. And so we've already, as part of my master's and as part of our work, we've mapped these landowners. And the idea is to buy green jackfruit from these properties, as well as support the implementation of agroforestry models that can integrate other species, including native ones like the Jussara acai, and other species that can grow alongside the jackfruit. So if anyone has more questions, I'm happy to talk more about that. But the idea is, how can we give value to the forest, the standing forest, control an exotic species? We say eat it to beat it. If you eat the green jackfruit, it cannot spread. And finally, we're looking at ways to actually insert the jackfruit in the local schools to be able to provide healthy, nutritious food to the people who live here. You can go to the next one. So really, just for you guys have an idea that we have there are so many big challenges. We know it's the year of the decade for restoration, the decade of restoration. And there are all these challenges, the Bond Challenge, the Initiative 2020 to restore millions of hectares of land. But how are we going to do that? So at Sinal, and I think probably the ecosystem restoration camps also shares this vision is that we need decentralized land steward arrangements. We need small communities of people, of areas who embrace this challenge of land stewardship and can use a diversity of different restoration techniques to restore our land. So if you go to the next slide. We are creating a bioregional vision. So Sinal do Vale, we are almost 200 hectares, but we are starting to create a vision for a much larger area, our bioregion. So you can see in red is Sinal do Vale. In the wildlife refuge is the white area, and that's a state wildlife refuge who we are now partnering with. It was recently created, but of course, since the Brazilian government faces so many issues for funding and for actual implementation as the public policy, they have very few resources. And then the whole buffer zone of the wildlife refuge, there are many of these communities that need solutions related to restoration of degraded land that needs to be restored. So we're working together with the wildlife refuge to map these property and these landowners and come up with the solutions, some of the solutions we've already experimented, but co-create other new solutions for restoration in our bioregion. You can go to the next one. And then finally, we have kind of the even bigger, longer term vision for the Rio Greenbelt. So there are these other organizations, El Nagual, Regua, Onda Verde, that are other organizations that have worked even longer in the field of restoration than Sinal do Vale. And we have a partnership with them, and we are creating this idea of a Rio Greenbelt, which would be a long distance trail for biking, for walking, for hiking, that would connect our different restoration centers, start bringing more conscious consumers, promoting ecotourism, and through this as well, begin mapping the properties that are essential for conservation and together come up with solutions for restoring this land. So we kind of have this bigger vision of the Rio Greenbelt, because in the end, you can see the city of Rio is growing, and those mountains behind are some of the last protected areas of forest in the state of Rio. So it's really important that we can come up with solutions. Yes, I guess that's it. I apologize for speaking if I spoke quickly. I'm happy to go back to anything, and feel free to ask any questions. And yes.
Thank you, Katie. That was a really wonderful presentation and a beautiful vision, I have to say. Yeah, I'm already curious. How did you got involved in this green belt? Is it your own vision, or is it already like a established collaboration?
Yeah, it began when I first arrived here in Brazil almost 6 years ago. We wanted to start getting to know the other major actors in the field. And so we visited Regua, which was an organization who's been working for 20 years. And they told us about Onda Verde, and we visited Onda Verde, and then we visited El Nagual. So Sinal kind of became the one taking the initiative and spearheading it a bit. So we started doing meetings together. We started sharing lots of knowledge, and it's been something that's been kind of going on for a long time. It's not so formalized. So we're always exchanging experiences, and we're always kind of the idea is that now in the last year, we've put together this proposal for the Rio Greenbelt, which would be actually the ecotourism trail that would connect those places. So we've been, applying for project proposals and talking to potential funders. So it's still nothing so concrete, but it's been an ongoing relationship for many years, and making this vision more and more concrete as we go.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could already tell that you have a great network already to share knowledge with each other, because you're also related with Camp Seachem, right? In a way.
Yeah, so Sechem in Egypt was a big inspiration for Thais, who created the organization. She visited it many years ago, and she always said this is one of the best examples she's ever seen of sustainable development. And that's when this idea of really committing to one particular place, as opposed to just doing one project here, one project there, going around the world, but it really brought her commitment to committing to one place, and because over time, that's the only way we can really have big impact is commitment to a place over time. That's what was her belief, and that's where Sinal came from. And second was an inspiration for that.
Well, thank you. Are there any first questions from you guys? Please raise your hand. You also have a button, I think the reaction tool to raise your hand. You can ask.
And Inge, I think there's a couple questions raised in the chat. One by Alice. I think that's a very good question. Shall I raise it?
Yeah, that's fine.
If that's okay for Alice as well. But she mentioned that it's is there a chance that people want to grow jackfruit if it gets economically interesting, and how can that be balanced? Because then we suddenly have every farmer growing jackfruit.
Yes, so lots of people always ask that, and I would say number one, the threat of that happening we think is very small because there are so many jackfruit already out there. I mean, if you go in these certain areas, there are jackfruit everywhere, and to the landowners, a lot of times they're considered a plague, like they don't like them because they're such big fruits, they're falling, they're dangerous, they have a strong smell. There's actually a lot of kind of almost prejudice against the fruit because people don't know it in its green form. So in a way, we number one, you don't need to plant any more jackfruit. And one tree can produce 250 fruits. So there's really no incentive, as well as the fact that I think that actually we're still figuring out all the pricing, but I think each jackfruit won't be worth it enough to be able to want, it's not going to be so lucrative that you want to be planting all these trees. And also the idea of the agroforest system that we're creating, it's the idea is to put other species that are either native or are not invasive and that have a higher value. So in the beginning, it's like the jackfruit is like what gets you to the table. Of course, we want everyone to be planting Jussara acai trees that are endangered species, but it takes 5 to 7 years to get the fruit. So the idea is the jackfruit is kind of here's the money. Now we will start implementing another incentivizing with the other fruits, the cupuaçu, the Jussara, the cacao, the curcuma, how do you say that? Turmeric. So the idea is kind of promote a diverse system so the jackfruit isn't the only species. But yeah, we hear that, people ask that a lot.
Thank you for raising the question.
All right, I see another question from Katrina. She's saying that she's getting quite worried when she sees how close the city boundary is and what is protecting the green area from the city just expanding.
Yeah, so it is very concerning. So there are certain areas that are protected. They're called conservation units, and there are 5 different types of conservation units in Brazil. Some of them are for sustainable use and some of them are 100% protected. So the ones that are for sustainable use are very difficult to implement because you have people living there. There's a lot of overlapping. You have the state government, you have the municipal government, then you have the conservation unit. So it's very difficult to implement it. And then you have the ones more like the parks. A lot of the green in the mountains are actually parks, and those are better protected. And then you have a lot of land. I mean, we see this all the time. The urban encroachment, I felt this in the last 3 years here, so much stronger. You see properties are being bought up all the time to be parceled and divided into multiple other properties and then sold off. So what's really protecting it is not so much. I mean, it's just for a long time, there have been people who have been owners of those properties, but now with the economic recession, with a lot of these areas, there used to be cattle, this whole area used to be coffee plantations. Now those don't exist. So there's less incentive to keep the land so people can make much more money just selling it. So there's not a lot protecting it. That's what we're a bit concerned about. And also condominiums, they're knocking down forests to put condominiums.
Right. Natalie, you had a question?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. I'm talking to you from France. I'm happy to join. Just to tell you where I am from. I'm currently working on the creation of a philanthropic fund to finance ecosystem restoration initiatives around the world. So I'm very much interested in ecosystem restoration camps in general, and very impressed by Camp Sinal do Vale in particular. Sorry for my English, it's such a long, as I don't travel anymore, right, John? I don't get the possibility to use my English, so it's terrible. So sorry about that. I have a question to you, Katie, about the welcoming, if I could say so, of the municipal government and state government to your specific initiative and to your associates, the other initiatives you want to build the trail with. What are the relationships, and are they very welcoming about these initiatives, or do they have any constraints, any demands? Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for the question. Yeah, so I would say with the municipal government here, they've always been very welcoming in the sense of, the city that we're in, Duque de Caxias, is considered, when I go to downtown Rio and I say I live in Duque de Caxias, people can't believe it because it's like the peri-urban, it's considered poor, dirty, lack of infrastructure, and it's not known for being, this beautiful oasis of forest. So when Thais came to here, and when the municipal government discovered, there was a place like Sinal with such international recognition and all this beautiful work, of course, they're very enthusiastic about it and they're always promoting us and things like that. The thing is that in practice, nothing much happens. Our roads, even to get to Sinal, the roads here are completely destroyed by the rains in January that we had this year, and the government still hasn't even come in to put the proper infrastructure in. So while of course there's interest and they're happy to support us, there's so much lack of funding and corruption and issues in Brazilian government, especially to help these rural areas. There's really a lack of interest, involvement, and funding, I guess. And then I would say, we have partnerships, for example, the state government, the Environmental Institute, we've done monitoring projects, and the new reforestation project we have coming is with the state government. So the state of Rio is really putting a lot of emphasis on restoration. And I would say the other organizations are probably similar in the sense there's, a relationship to some degree, but in practice, it's not so useful. And for example, if we see things being, trees being cut down or deforestation happening here, it's also complex because if we then, tell the municipal government and they're supposed to punish it, it also puts Sinal in a very complex position. People don't trust, Sinal has this role of we have to be, there's a lot of people are cutting down trees to build houses. And sometimes it's, poor, low income economic people. So we have to be careful. We don't want it to become such a punitive system that as soon as you involve anyone from the state, state level or environmental, then there's a lot of punition. So we have to be kind of careful about that as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Are there any other questions from people?
I'm seeing some
John?
comments. Yeah. John?
Yeah, if I could just mention that one of the things that I've noticed in my observations around the world is that the value of ecological function is so much higher than the value of products and things. And this seems to be like the really big driver for degradation. And so we need to help the whole of civilization understand the true value of climate regulation, the true value of the hydrological regulation, because what you see around Rio, which is very well described by Judith Schwartz in her book, is also that the water can come back. This is what we see in the Luz Plateau and also in other areas of the world that have been restored, is that when the moisture is maintained in the lower hydrological cycle, then it's in the soil, it's in the biomass, and it's in the respiration. And when we take away that vegetation, we're encouraging evaporation rates and temperatures to rise. So when you take that on a global perspective, and you see that, like, okay, I think it's only, my backyard or this place in my, it's just a small place. What could it do? But if you consider the vast areas that are denuded now, then you realize that human impact has such an enormous impact. And so if we turn that around and more people are focused on restoration, then it also has that reverse effect. And then when we do that, we can actually more or less prove that the value of the ecological function is higher than the value of the things. And when this happens, we really get to the point where everybody will do restoration because it's more valuable. It's economically more sensible. So they don't even have to understand the ecological aspects. They have to see it from the economic perspective.
Thank you, John. Katrina Boo, you raised your hand.
Hello, thank you. I just wondered, thank you for the really interesting presentation. It's wonderful to see all these camps all over the world and doing such a wonderful job for us all. I wanted to ask, has COVID impacted on you, and which way? Obviously, because of travel, you're going to be impacted in terms of volunteers, but are there any other impacts that we perhaps wouldn't, are not so obvious? So how has COVID impacted your camp?
Yeah, so great question. And it has impacted a lot because as Sinal was always hospitality, it was one of our main sources of income to be able to cover our operations costs using the houses that we have for events, for retreats, companies coming but internationally and from Brazil. It's massively cut into our income generation. Luckily, we've been able to rent out houses kind of Airbnb style for a lot of residents from Rio who are trying to escape the city. But that doesn't nearly cover the costs of our operations. So yeah, I mean, we're in a, we've been lucky up until now, we've been able to survive, but honestly, every month here is how do we pay the bills? What other we're constantly applying for projects. We still haven't, I mean, to be honest, we still haven't made it out. We haven't made it out. We don't know what next year will look like for Sinal. Of course, we're very hopeful because we believe that, restoration is so much the future that eventually the right partners and investors will come. And we believe we've positioned ourselves in a really important place. But yeah, we've definitely been affected a lot especially since we had so much of an international network. And I was just going to comment, someone said something about the research, about the story of the fascinating story of Rio and the talking about the reforestation. Actually, what's interesting in that reforestation, that famous story, the jackfruit tree was used as part of the reforestation because of its ability to grow in degraded soil and because of its usefulness as a food source for enslaved people and for people in poor people. And so one of the arguments about the jackfruit is that it actually was very useful for restoration, and that over time, and it usually grows in degraded areas, and once areas become more regenerated and have biodiversity, they themselves slowly kind of go out on their own. So I thought that was interesting. The jackfruit was one of the species used in that reforestation.
Thank you, Katie. Is there another question from, yes, Carla from Portugal?
Sorry, hi. I'm not from Portugal. Portugal is my husband's last name. It's a huge confusion.
Sorry about that.
No problem at all. Kate, I grew up in Brazil, and first of all, thank you so much for this amazing project. It's really a sense of pride to see how the work you guys are doing. It's a huge game changer. I grew up in Minas Gerais state, and I know how Mata Atlântica is so important and how the biodiversity can really bring these benefits. My major question is, beyond the government, I know that the private sector in Brazil is still too shy to input money on this kind of research and this kind of projects. How do you guys see actions that us outside from Brazil can support and can help you on this sense?
Well, so great to know someone from Brazil is out there and listening. And yeah, I would say, well, of course, yeah, the private sector, we've been trying to map out, companies, and there are a lot of companies in this area. So we're trying to engage more of the companies. I think there's more pressure from consumers, pressure from people. But still always a challenge. For example, there's Coca-Cola. There's a massive Coca-Cola company right behind the valley that we're in, and we'll be using the water for the next 60 years there. So we're hoping to get some type of, help. I mean, that they should be investing in this area. But yeah, from a personal, from anyone who's listening, of course, following us on the work that we're doing, making connections for us. If you have ideas of organizations, of project proposals, of anything, we're really open. We're really open, and we always send out, when we're doing fundraisers. Or yeah, just, I mean, we're still open for it. Of course, the moment's difficult with volunteers now, especially in this kind of peak moment. But luckily, Sinal, we've been able to kind of maintain a daily routine that's more or less similar, just because we're in such an isolated environment. So hopefully soon we'll be able to accept volunteers, at least in a very slow, small way. So also, campers who have experience, who want to, we're really looking for people who really are committed, who want to contribute, who want to spend time here. We really need people who have knowledge, with soil, with restoration. So also, come to Sinal.
Great. I see Tuxley raised his hand. You are muted. Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah. So I was wondering, Katie, you talked about the bioconstruction a little bit, and you mentioned bamboo, and then you mentioned people taking down the forest in the area, that local people to build structures. And I'm wondering, are the structures, what are the usual structures made of in the area, and is there potential in the bamboo, which grows pretty fast, to supplement that? That's my question.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, so certainly most of the current construction is usually, bricks, these kind of hollow bricks and cement, huge, lots of cement. There's cement everywhere. And bioconstruction, I believe there's a huge potential, really, because I think one thing is getting, in terms of restoration, of course, we want people to, producers and farmers, but culturally, I think this area has gone much more in the direction, it's becoming so urbanized that there's lots of people who are constructors, people who work with construction. So we've always said that bringing sustainable materials, whether that's bamboo, because it depends, you of course can use bamboo, but also some of these, recycled materials, and ecological building. I think there are many different techniques. We've always said that, or the infrastructure, the sanitation and things like that. I think there's a huge potential here. And a lot of people are working with that in Brazil. Brazil has a lot of really cool things with bioconstruction. Just up until now, that's kind of been the area we've least had support, have experience, and have knowledge. We have some bioconstruction buildings here made out of bamboo, made out of earth. We have some natural paints that we always use, but I would say it's definitely in kind of the scale of prototype to business. It's still much more on kind of an experimental phase, but I think there's definitely potential.
Interesting. I see a question from Nandana in the chat, wondering if you have considered partnering with wildlife experts working to expand range of very rare monkeys. The muriqui, I'm not sure how to pronounce, sorry, native to Brazilian Atlantic Rainforest, might help with politics question.
So what we have a partnership with a local NGO that does specifically monitoring of the golden lion tamarin. And we also have the partnership with the Wildlife Refuge, which they're really focused on wildlife and fauna. So that's kind of been the local, the recent partnerships we've done. But yeah, I know that the golden lion tamarin, for example, is considered one of the most, endangered primates in the world. And there's so much, interest and funding and things like that. So we've kind of looked into some stuff, but nothing has really emerged, bigger. But thank you for that. I think I don't know the muriqui. So I will look into that. And I saw another question from Patricia about who is the actual owner. And that is, so we are the owners of those 200 hectares, either we or there have been certain, Thais, who over time has brought friends who have bought property, has bought those lands, and we take care of them. They don't live here, or, just come every now and then. But within those property, there's also, there's about 15 of us that live on the Sinal property. So whether there's a few of the, international people like myself, and then also the local families that work at the organization also live in some of these houses as well.
Cool. I'm just wondering, just to paint a picture, what does a day look like, or maybe a week? Because it probably no day is the same, but I'm just curious.
Yes, no day is the same. I guess if there's anything, there's that you never get bored at Sinal. There's always something new happening. Like yesterday was the first day of, we're expanding the jackfruit processing plant. So yesterday was the day when we came in and opened the road and put all the dirt in, and we had, there's lots of commotion, and a pipe broke, and electrical wire broke, and then I'm there with shoveling dirt in and around the area. So that's more active day. And then designing how the plant's going to work, and then of course I'm doing lots of partnership development and more things on the computer. But the majority of the team is either working with reforestation. Right now we're preparing all the fences for the area, because there are a lot of cows and goats in the area that if they invade at the wrong time, you will lose lots of species. So putting that up, and then we have our whole team eats breakfast and lunch together. It really depends on the person, whether it's building something. We're redoing our tree nursery, so some people are building it, some people are putting up fences, some people are planting, some people are making seedlings. It really depends on the person. Something for everyone here.
That's good. Sounds like fun. Must be a beautiful place to live.
Yes, it really is.
Any other question from anyone? I see very positive notes. No other questions, which is fine as
yes,
well.
I would like to make a question. I am driving. I'm going to the dentist. That's why it's so weird. I am Margarita. So I heard that you planted a lot of jackfruit trees.
No, we didn't. Not planting them. We just collect the fruit.
You just collect the fruit. Is it invasive? Because I planted some.
So where are you located?
Actually, in the Amazon rainforest, but high mountain. So I am 100 feet high.
So, well, first of all, from my understanding, in the Amazon, it's not considered an invasive species. One of our okay. Yeah. So at least in the Amazon in Brazil, it's not considered an invasive species. If you plant one, it's not going to spread. It's more considered an invasive species here in the Mata Atlântica due to various factors. One of them being that there's lots of hills, the animals around here, the fact that it was planted in a lot of areas, but it was planted by humans consuming it and throwing it. There's like a big study that shows all the areas in the Tijuca Forest Park where there's high densities of jackfruit. There were also charcoal farms, so where actually humans were eating the jackfruit and planting it. So I understand the Amazon, it's not considered invasive. But of course, the idea is that if you need to be able to consume the fruit or don't let it spread. But I think each area is different. And also there's even a debate here, whether it's really invasive and what does it mean to be an invasive species. So I'm more open to I think if we use it as if the humans have a relationship with it. The problem is when we just let it go on its own. But if we're managing it, if we're taking the fruit, then it doesn't necessarily have an invasive behavior.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Hi, Margarita. I fix in Peru, high up in the mountains in Peru. But one of the things that I noticed from the discussion about invasives is that it's often not very nuanced, and that people think that like if this plant colonizes a place which is degraded, maybe we should take it out. What's that doing? You know, terrible. We want the endemic and the indigenous plants. But if you've lost the plants that are doing that particular task, for instance, you have tap roots which are going really deep into the ground to bring moisture to the top of the soils. You need something to do this. And what I've seen in many parts of the world is that plants which are often considered invasive are the first ones to go into there, but actually they're early pioneer species which are colonizing that place. And when you get a canopy to come up, it actually just, it ends the colonization, because they have to have massive amounts of sunlight in order to photosynthesize. And when when higher succession plants arrive, then those disappear, but they've already done their work. And so if we take them out without understanding this, but I think you have to study this. You have to measure carefully what's going on. You can't just like say that's an invasive, take it out. And if we're vilifying species, I mean, this is really the height of, like this is plant apartheid or something. Like okay, we don't want that one. Kill. It's like not right. It's not really the right way to go about this. Having a more nuanced and profound conversation is a much better way to deal with this.
Yes, I wasn't going to take them out, but I was going to watch them carefully. Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Good, Margarita. Thank you, John, for your contribution to this.
Yeah, John, it's great to hear that from you, because I think there really is this idea of a tree is now invasive. I mean, in the end, the Portuguese were the one who were invasive, who came to Brazil, and they were the ones who actually brought the plant. And so it kind of just bringing a war on this. For example, these jackfruit trees were extremely important for recuperating degraded areas, or that can provide a really nutritious food for lots of people in the area. And if you actually were to imagine cutting down all the jackfruit trees, I mean, they're already here. We're going to waste money and destroying the carbon in all these trees just because they're considered invasive. I mean, it's kind of crazy. And when you think about how climate change is changing everything, we don't know what the Atlantic forest is going to look like in 30 years. If the jackfruit trees are the ones that are still growing really well and they have a food on them, do we really want to be cutting them all down? So it's great to hear that you feel the same way.
I see that.
I would
go for John.
Oh, okay. Well, if I could just add one more short concept. We've noticed, for instance, there is an Australian plant called casuarina pine. And I've noticed in many desertified areas, if you plant casuarina pine, it builds up a huge amount of organic material below the surface, and you can easily get rid of it. But what you want to do is you want that soil to be restored. And so when that happens, then it's possible to have these later succession plants to come back. But without the early work of the pioneers, you can't have later successions. So like if you plant the climax there, it just dies immediately because it needs to be nurtured in the beginning.
Thank you, John. I see a comment from Hannah Wardle that in Wales they spend so much resources trying to remove the rhododendron and the Japanese and not the weed. So that's interesting as well. Are there any other questions or comments on this topic?
I just wanted to say, it's me, by the way.
Hi, Ash.
I wanted to say thank you so much to Katie and the Sinal team. We're delighted to have you as a camp, and we enjoy you being here just as much as you enjoy being here. and your presentation was fantastic. And yeah, I just wanted to say thank you, basically.
Oh, thank you, Ash. Ash has been from the beginning, my contact, from explaining all the things, sending me all the emails, and I've learned so much with Ash, so I appreciate it.
That is so kind. Thank you. Are there any last questions or people who would like to share a little story? Otherwise, we did notice that some people came a little bit later on into the session, but we are recording it. So in the next newsletter, you will find the entire recording of this session. Yes, it will be emailed around, so good for everyone to know. If there aren't any last questions, then I think maybe it's time to thank you, everyone. Thank you, Katie, for this really special presentation and your knowledge. And yeah, and thank you everyone for joining again. We're really grateful for you all to be here and to spend your time with us. So thank you for that.
Inga, are we going to stay on for a little while and just have a free discussion with anybody who wants to stay on?
If people would like to stay, they're more than, if there are still topics that people would like to discuss, then please stay. But also feel free to go. John, is there a certain topic that you would like to discuss?
Well, also, Katie, thank you so much. It's so enlightening and so exciting to see what's going on there. That is just absolutely fantastic. And I think this is the type of thing that we need to encourage, because you're leading, and a lot of different places around the world can learn from your experiences. But the one thing that I wanted to talk about separately, differently, is that the official launch of the UN Decade of Ecosystem Restoration will be on June the 5th. And we've been working to make a program that can be distributed all over the world. Everyone will be able to use it. And the plan is for this to be the first of many programs that can be used in a kind of a series. It's not really a science documentary. It's more like a show. So there'll be music, and there'll be looking at different camps and different ideas from different parts of the world. So I hope everybody will help to send their materials to Kath and to Inga and Ashley and to Faye and Christina and others in the Ecosystem Restoration Camps movement, because we'll be able to promote the different camps through this means. And we can also introduce, and then we can define, and we can reinforce some of the different more complex thoughts about ecosystem restoration, because this is not a simple thing. I think we need to realize that many generations of human beings have not got this right. And so the degree of difficulty is high, but the potential is also enormous. And the potential is not just ecological, it's really connected to all the different social problems and economic problems that we're seeing around the world, as well as fairness and equality. So finally, it's a justice issue too. So Brazil is a very good example of talking about this, but you can find it everywhere in the world, really. It's not just in one place. Anyway, if anybody wants to talk about that, we could talk about what's going on with that too.
I would love to, John. Hi, Peter here. Sorry to have missed you, Katie, but I just came from the Global Landscapes Forum, and the ecosystem restoration community. This was IUCN, Society of Ecological Restoration, World Bank. They were all there.
they're really struggling with the social equity issue, the social justice issue. We're really good at putting indicators together and defining how we're doing on restoring ecosystems, but the relationship to the human beings that are there is, in the formal community, I would say the IUCN community, just not there. So I think this is a really important subject. I think our camps, since they're working with communities, really should start contributing to that discussion and debate. It's, I think, the theme of the decade, the human ecosystem relationship, and kind of missed by the experts.
Yeah, Peter, thank you for that. I think, certainly one of the things that I've been experiencing here in California is how serious this is. I mean, one of the first things that I noticed, excuse me, when I came to California was how amazing the remnants of the climax equilibrium are here in California. The enormous, they're 350 foot high, like 115 meters high trees, thousands of years old, but they're only 3 to 5% remaining of what was there when the like 170, 200 years ago, when the second wave of settlers came, because you had a Spanish-led Mexican immigrations coming up earlier, and then you had this westward, go west young man kind of migration from the eastern coast and the Midwest of the United States. And I mean, the degree of pain and suffering from the Native American populations is almost unfathomable. And then you have different kinds of slavery. I mean, just unbelievable things. And so it's almost as if those things have never, those events, those crimes, really. I mean, I don't know how you can describe murder and genocide and slavery, in any nice way. There's no way to, make it okay. And there's never been closure to those things. So in a sense, they're in the past, but we haven't really put them in the past. And I think one of the things that also affected me extremely in Africa was the truth and reconciliation process that took place in South Africa. And I also saw it in Rwanda. And it is heartbreaking to go through this process, but it's necessary in order to have some kind of closure, because you have all these victims, and the victims are not simply, because the victims are both the people who are causing the oppression and the people who were oppressed. So there are no winners in that situation. Human civilization doesn't get to go forward into a beautiful future unless we deal with these things that are left over from the past. And the degradation of the plants and the animals and the biodiversity loss and the loss of climate regulation is related to the degradation of the people. So it's really a justice issue, it's an economic issue, and it's an ecological issue. So understanding the complexity and coming together to deal with that is one of the things that I really love about SECIM, is that they have been doing that now for 40 some years. And it's quite beautiful to see communities coming together and trying to go beyond the thing and beyond the things that have happened in the past, and not only restore the land, but to bring back joy. And so the code words that I'm using for the film series we're working on are like kindness and joy and gratitude. So, and then we also have to go even further to things like forgiveness. And, you know, how do you forgive genocide or slavery? What's the next steps? But until we get to those things and we have that as as something that we're trying, at least, you know, if we're not even trying to process this or address this, I think we're going to fail. And if we're trying, then we have to see, can we succeed? Because it's very, very difficult to do this.
I would really love to comment on that. Is it just open discussion? Okay.
Yes, it is. Go for it.
Thank you so much, first of all, for having the space. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to join for the entire discussion, but I think I came right on time. I know I came right on time. I'm currently here in Cabo Verde, the island of Fogo. They're islands off of the west coast of Africa. And the legacy of colonialism is so present, you know, it really is not something that is in the past at all. I think that that narrative that is constantly getting presented so that there isn't reparations, there isn't justice within the reality of the economic order of the world is highly problematic. And I actually got introduced to your work, John, maybe about a few months ago. And I've been here for the last year working on creating a plan to do an ecosystem restoration camp here in Cabo Verde, in Fogo. And I'm taking in as much information as I can, as much knowledge, but at the end of the day, I end up in the same situation of dealing with the reality that, you know, the resources to do what needs to be done holistically, because I do think that the land is critical to our social conundrum that we find ourselves in. But again, it's so closely tied together because, you know, the resources aren't there. I spent the last 6 years in Brooklyn, New York, doing urban farming work. I created, co-founded an organization, the one that's listed in the name here, Tuhudi Ma'at. And we created a program called Organic Food for the People, where the whole mission was around activating Black urban growers and creating a network and healing our relationship to the land with a legacy of enslavement. There is a disconnect and a trauma associated with the land and our ancestors being enslaved to the land, while at the same time holding the power of the legacy of being the first farmers and gardeners of this earth. It is a very, sacrificial work for me because I don't, everything is sacrifice. It's always, donating my own time, my own energy, not receiving for the work that I'm doing. So I kind of, I have questions about the ecosystem restoration process and what I'm doing here, but I also just wanted to speak to that because I always feel like I'm at a roadblock. Although I am highly spiritually conscious of, how to attract and not block, the resources that I need, there is a reality that it's not available to me, readily available to me. But I trust in connections and doing the work and eventually aligning with those things. But it is exactly what was being spoken of. That is the reality. Those of us who may have, aligned with a different reality and experiences that have led us to this clarity and this truth, we are still, damaged from the legacy of the continuum that we're inheriting. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you. That is so true. And, you know, I think that, well, I see Katrina from Mustard Seed Trust here. And, you know, I have to say that I faced exactly this same concept because about 3 decades ago, I left my job and started to do, you know, study ecosystem restoration, and everybody thought I was insane. You know, my family was saying like, "What are you doing? Are you sure?" You know, this kind of thing. So, but what I found ultimately was that, first of all, I was always frustrated in trying to do commercial videos or, you know, working for the news networks or that sort of thing, because it seemed like the people who were in charge of that had no clue about what to talk about, what to do. And so I would be being ordered to make, you know, sort of films, but I didn't really have a great feeling for the kind of vision about what these films were going to be about, and they would always stop without any conclusion. So the idea that we're not connected to the outcome is just ridiculous. You know, the influence of the media now is so intense, and the level of the conversation is very low. And so it's actually devolving. You know, like if you kind of, in the past, you had a literati, you know, the educated classes were trying harder and harder, and like there was a movement for total education. But in a sense, we need to realize that education is not just vocational training, that the purpose of education is not just like, how can I become a better worker? You know, I mean, if go back and look at Charlie Chaplin's Modern Times, and you know, if you think about this, when I was young, I remember the 1950s, the 1960s, the 1970s, the 1980s. You know, I'm almost 70 years old. I can hardly believe it. And but what I notice is that there were discussions that, well, there's going to be so much more leisure time because of technology. Well, forget that. You know, anybody who still has a job was, you know, in my experience, was trying to work 60 or 80 hours a week instead of, you know, where's the leisure in that? And then so many other people don't have any jobs at all. So the whole idea of this workforce thing is saying, well, you everybody are employees, or you are workers. Well, that's just not true. We're human beings. It's also, it's like saying you're consumers. So we need to really have a much more nuanced conversation, which is talking about what is the purpose of life? What is the meaning? Why are we here? And, you know, I noticed, like, when I shifted, so to speak to your your comment there, when I realized, well, okay, the people who are employing me have no clue what I can do. And, you know, and they don't seem to know what they're doing. They're just trying to make money. And so when I stopped doing that and I just started pursuing my own interests, it was difficult. But gradually, only the people who understood what I was doing would be interested to work with me. Everybody else was like, he's nuts. You know, why would we hang out with him? And I mean, that also made my Igor feel more powerful than my Eeyore feel more powerful than my Igor. But on the other hand, this became something that was a lesson for me. And the more I followed what I believed and what I was learning, and absorbing. I actually believe is not the right word, because belief systems are dangerous in many ways because they can be wrong. You can believe in something which is completely false. That's what's now the biggest problem that I see with the media, is it's promoting all this stuff, which is like, what are you talking about? Stop it. And the most important thing is to, in research or in seeking, is to find. You know, a lot of people are seeking, but not everybody is finding. And when you get into the right space, you find. If you are honestly exploring and learning, you will find. So, and people will also find you. And I think that's the strongest thing that we can do together, is be a network where everyone in this network can benefit from what everyone knows. So I'm talking too much, so I'll be quiet.
Thank you, John. Thank you. I see a note from Hannah Wardle. She's saying the more you work with the local traditions and populations, the more the work will spread around the area. This is also apparent in Wales. If you don't respect and empower local populations, projects get blocked or made into islands. That's very, very interesting. Thank you for this comment. Does someone else? Oh, Faye, you raised your hands. Please share your thoughts with us. But you are muted.
Hi, thank you. I hope that I can articulate these thoughts, because I've been thinking a lot about this recently, and I'm really glad that you've raised this topic has been raised today. When you say that we need to come together as a network, John, I think in that process, it's also really important that individually we also look into ourselves, because we are part of, we've learned a system that is colonial, and that's embodied in us. And I think that we need to do personal work to unravel that, and that will feed out into how we don't repeat the same patterns that we've been born into and continue unconsciously. I hope that makes sense how I've articulated it. I mean it in a very practical way, although it sounds somewhat abstract.
I do understand what you mean. I'm also thinking about it myself a lot, and I'm more trying to understand more about regenerative leadership. And I also feel that a big part of our transition into a more regenerative world is just for us to get a better understanding and really become regenerative leaders, healing ourselves, being more connected to nature. And I feel that this is the separation that we are living in is something that is really leading to these many problems. And I'm really grateful that we have a bunch of people here that is trying to be more regenerative, either within themselves or with their community and with the land. So thank you very much for everyone. Is there still any comments or questions that anyone has or would like to share something? Otherwise, I would like to thank everyone. It has been a lovely session and many topics are discussed. Thank you again, Katie, for sharing your story.
Thank you so much for the invitation. It was wonderful. What a privilege.
Great. All right. Well, hope we'll get the recording to you soon. And I would like to wish you a very lovely day or a lovely evening, and hope to see you again next month. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.